sure, sure.
But that's not why we're here.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
No.
you have a lovely Technicolor robe on, and we're here to talk about not shortcomings, spare ribs.
Spare ribs,
Album.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You got two features on this one. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of features on Sleaford Mods albums in the past. Two great ones from what I can tell, but what was the decision there and why those two?
We just talked about ways of pushing the production, and we had a meeting with Rough Trade must have been around summer 2019, and we talked when we signed the deal with them. Actually, I think it might have been September. I can't remember. Anyway, we thought about going down, getting to know them a bit, because before we re-signed with them, we obviously left them on the advice of our old manager, which was the wrong thing to do. And, cutting a long story short, whilst we were under a Rough Trades umbrella with our old manager, he always kept us apart. We didn't really get to know them. So we thought we'd go down for a meeting with them and ask them what they were looking for, you know what I mean? Because this is number 6 album. I felt like we needed to do something a little different. Andrew did as well to a certain point, you know what I mean? We talked about producers. We don't need producers. We're not a producer-led band. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been good. Andrew is too precious about music for a start. But the idea about collaborations came on, and we took that. Sort of took made a note of that, and then just thought about it and carried on. After leaving the meeting and thinking, is there anyone we could collaborate with? And obviously Amy, who we're big fans of, she's on Rough Trade. That was an instantaneous idea. And then Billy Nomates, who's an up-and-coming singer in this country, we got to know her over the last year and a half, and she's absolutely fantastic. So, I sort of popped the question to her as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Amyl and the Sniffers. They were definitely one of the best shows I went to last year. But Billy Nomates was new to me. I didn't know about her until she opened for you guys at that live stream at the 100 Club.
Yeah, really good. Just something really, really kind of new about her. And her voice reminds her of all those great soul singers from the 80s, and pop singers, all rolled into one. It seemed like the natural thing to do to ask her to collaborate. I mean, she shares the same manager as us. After we got to know her, our manager took her on board, and I did a collaboration with her on her debut self-titled album that came out this year. So I thought it was, the next thing to do, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I dropped this into the show itself, I got Colin sick off her album queued up right before Mark and Mindy. So
okay.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah. So you actually wrote part of this album during the pandemic, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, we went back in there in July and recorded the rest of the songs. We had 5 songs recorded in January, and we went off to do an Australian tour, and obviously came back. COVID happened. We were locked down pretty much until sort of June, July. And then me and Andrew went in July and did the rest of the album over 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I asked just because I'm personally a little skeptical of the type of art that might come out of this period. However, you're one of the bands I feel like I have complete confidence in being able to create something that's both kind of worth your time and also reflective of the current reality. Before I ask how that shaped this album, I'm just wondering the things that are kind of at the center of your music, whether that's government incompetence or hypocrisy or inequality. In the context of the pandemic is one thing, but do you remember when you first started to grasp those kind of societal wrongs and failings that kind of frequently finds itself at the center of your lyrics?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, from a very early age, sort of having to work all of the time, having to work for nothing. all of the time, long days, 10-hour days, 5-6 days a week, for minimum wage in most jobs. So from around sort of 96, 97, it became quite clear that money talks and bullshit walks, and it's like, well, do I want to go chasing money? I don't even think I could if I wanted to. I was not business minded at all. I'd told myself I wanted to be a musician, and that was that. But as I got older and older, the conflict between reality and my aspirations became too big, and I sort of fell into a void with it and became very angry and very bitter. Very aggressive about most things, about just living a life that was just unfulfilled. You know what I mean? And this was centered around the reaction against having to try and survive on next to nothing. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. And that's actually a great segue into what I had next. So now in the context of this new album, and specifically on the latest single you released, Shortcomings, it might be a bit of an obvious question, but like, I don't have a real read on British public opinion. Do you feel like there's a lack of anger towards the government and how they handled this pandemic? Because I suspect that might be, what is kind of animating some of the music here.
Yeah, I think there's the anger has been turned towards yourself in this country, you know what I mean? By the many apparatus that the government have put into play, whether it's propaganda, divide and rule techniques that are brought out through social media and also through the printed media. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people are kind of angry with themselves. They're angry at each other. There are, don't get me wrong, a large portion of the British public that are angry against the government. But what can you do?
Yeah.
In Paris, they take to the streets and it changes policy. But in this country, we don't. We don't do anything. We just moan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And occasionally there might be an uprising, but that is quashed near enough straight away. So it's a mixture of where the anger is going, but generally speaking, a lot of people have been duped by the Conservative government into thinking the ills of their existence is because of other things and not because of the greed, the incompetence, the arrogance of the Conservative Party. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the thing that and I think this is why your music resonates with me is because it's something I also tend to feel that at first I thought it was a lack of anger, but yeah, it's getting to what you're talking about where it's maybe not anger that's well directed, because there's a whole media business designed about soliciting anger and building outrage like you talk about. And partisan anger is much different. I think the thing that you're tapping into that resonates with me is that, yeah, that kind of Stockholm syndrome that I feel like people now have with the government and their, I don't know. Yeah, I saw in an interview you mentioned, I think the line was like a powerlessness in Revolt.
Yes.
Yeah. That really struck me. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, people just and have been feeling powerless for nearly 10 years. Before that, there wasn't the mindset to center yourself around the idea of whether or not you feel powerless or not, because society wasn't great, but in this country people were able to go on, get benefits if they wanted, they were able to get shit jobs if they needed to, blah blah blah. But as soon as austerity kicked in, public services were slashed, private sector, public sector jobs were slowly slashed. That's when it all kicked in. It's like what are you going to do? You can't do anything apart from try to survive. You certainly can't change policies. That's just impossible, unless, of course, you want to die. That is the only thing that's going to happen to you if you go against the powers that be. You'll just end up dying. So what are you going to do? You've got to survive, and survival changes from each person depending on their status in society, and so there is a powerlessness in the sense of, will things improve? Will there be a time where life isn't terrible, And I think it's become terrible for a lot of people. Most notably, people that are on low wages, working class people in this country, the underclass, which are people that can't even sign on, So, and then moving upwards towards a lower middle class and to the upper middle class, there is stress and worry. It's like a paranoia. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and how much of that, can you see the through line from Maggie Thatcher to Boris Johnson?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
So, I mean, it started with Margaret Thatcher, really, to a certain degree, with neoliberalism. And indeed, obviously, Ronald Reagan in your country.
Yeah, I read a whole book about it this summer. I learned all about the miners' strikes and everything.
So it was like a massive push of stripping away assets. And for what? To be a bigger player on the world stage, to be to accommodate a free market. I don't know too much about it, but it just seemed to get a lot tighter from 1979 onwards in this country. So it's been a 40, nearly 50-year story of neoliberal policy, and that's not changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel like people have at least an awareness of neoliberalism in your country? Because I feel like there's a total lack of understanding. It's really just Reaganomics in America, in my mind.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you see people being interviewed, mainly Trump supporters, so that's not really a fair view, but, there is absolutely no idea of anything as regards the power structure in your country with some of these people, There's no education. And the same can be said for a lot of English people. They're just not aware of it, That education isn't there. The Black Lives Matter movement, the idea that what that brought up was the education system. One of the things it brought up anyway was the education system in this country that is completely biased towards white culture. There's absolutely no information there that tells you about how callous and vicious and evil the British Empire used to be. There's no history in there about slavery, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody knows anything really, and I learned off my own back. Okay, I'm getting this inclination. I wonder if this is going to answer the questions I've got in my head, But a lot of people don't. Most people live their lives not asking questions,
Yeah. And, in a small part, I have to at least give credit to you, because as much as I had an appetite for this kind of thing and this kind of music that touches on it, if it wasn't probably for your music and others, I probably would not have spent time reading, A Brief History of Neoliberalism earlier this summer, and learned about the miners' strikes. Yeah,
that's quite something.
It's I think you said it exactly, that a lot of people don't realize that it's this 40, 50-year arc that's been going on, and that the power structures have been set up that way.
It's it's just sink or swim. That's all it is, and it ain't changed. And it's like, you are expected to look after yourself, and you are allowed to thrive to a certain degree. But even that is being taken away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I wanted to actually just 2 more questions before I let you go. On a much lighter subject, Baking Daddy. Is that a hit with your kids?
We don't. Well, I'm kind of cautious to show them it because it's a little bit adult content, isn't it? But then I realise it goes out on Instagram where any fucker can watch it. So,
well,
but, you know, it's not too overboard. It might be a bit suggestive, but they've seen a few little bits. I just think my daughter especially just thinks I'm an idiot. You know.
Yeah, because that's the thought I had. I was like, Baking Daddy seems like it'd be great for kids because you're making, you know, desserts all the time for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does feel like you need to close the kitchen door when you're baking.
Completely. Oh, completely. So I'll be curious as to how this will play out and how it will attribute to their characters moving forward.
You don't think they're going to be on the Great British Bake Off or yourself or any of that?
I don't know. I've no idea. You know, I think they just look at me like I'm some kind of bemused animal sometimes. So, yeah, we'll see.
Well, it's helped give us all a little levity during this.
Yeah.
So this is an impossible question to answer, but I did see the UK is rolling out vaccines now. If there's a world where it's safe to tour by, I don't know, summer, fall, can we expect Sleaford Mods to tour supporting the new album?
Yeah, that's the idea. We definitely want to come back next year, and there are, you know, nothing's been, well, things are kind of under lock and key at the minute, but there are plans afoot to come say hello, you know, in the very near future, definitely.
Yeah. They had plans for the US?
Yes. So, yes, all will be revealed soon, though, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Very excited to have you. Could not be more appreciative of your time.
No problem. It was good to talk and nice to have met you, man.
Yeah. All right. Well,
okay.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too, brother. All right. You take care, yeah?
Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.